Good evening. We'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings adopted at the organizational meeting held January 3rd, 2024. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Kenilworth Board of Education has been provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the local source on December 12th, 2023. A copy has been filed with the Kenilworth Borough Clerk, posted in the board office, the Kenilworth Borough Hall, Brearley, and Harding Schools, as is provided by the Open Public Meetings Act.
Thank you, Mr. Ganella. At this time, can everyone please join us and rise to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Ganella, can we please have roll call?
Biner.
Here.
David. Here. Drogan.
Here.
Ferrara.
Here.
Tabitha.
Here.
Ladati.
Here.
Panici.
Here.
Tiers. Zimmerman.
Here. Good. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ganella. At this time, we'll have the receiving of the minutes from December 11, 2023. Can I please have a motion to accept the minutes from December 11, 2023? Okay, motion made by Mr. Ferrera, seconded by Mr. Haberther. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Mr. Ganella, do we have any public correspondence this evening?
We do not have public correspondence.
Okay, perfect, thank you so much. At this time, we will now move to superintendent's reports and presentations. Mr. Arlington.
Good evening, everybody. Happy to have Nand here to give his report. Floor is yours, Nand.
Hey, Nan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Arlington.
You got it.
Happy New Year to everybody, belated, of course, and I hope everybody enjoyed their snow, you know, even though it was just a little bit. Anyways, in terms of high school news, their midterms exams will be January 23rd to 26th. All of these days will be half days, and there'll be 2 exams per day. The market period 2 and / semester 1 ends on January 26th. And in terms of college and career planning, the FAFSA workshops are Wednesday and Thursday nights for senior parents. And last week, the sophomores participated in the college admissions games with their high school counselors. And this week, the juniors are going to be doing the same. The junior parent night is January 25th at 7 p.m. And February 1st basically concludes the college applications process for most seniors. And a winter sports update as well. The boys varsity basketball season has started with a 4-3 record, and the girls varsity basketball is at a 4-2 record, and the wrestling team has also begun their season with a winning record of 3-1. So go Bears. The robotics team is having their second competition on January 13th at Milburn High School, and David Burley is planning a Black History Month event in February to follow the success of Hispanic Heritage Night. Scheduling for the 2024 to 2025 school year starts now, and teachers are in the process of making recommendations for next year's school classes. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Nan.
Thanks, Nand. Do board members have questions for Nand?
No, great job, thank you.
Thanks, Nand.
Thanks, Nan.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Ganella is going to give us a referendum update.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This will be a regular component of our monthly meetings moving forward from now until probably September or October of 2025, hopefully. So it's going to be very brief, but at least give you and the community an idea of where we are with our various projects. As you know, we have 3 projects. We have the HVAC upgrade project, the fields upgrades, as well as the addition and alterations to Brearley and Harding as well. The HVAC upgrades were ahead of schedule, actually, over here at Brearley. They're basically taking 5 classrooms per week and installing the unit ventilators in those rooms, and they are right now ahead of schedule. All the UVs for both Harding and Brearley have been procured, and so that's a good thing. That was one of the concerns that we had moving into this project, was the supply chain and the long lead time for some of these projects, but they're all in, so that's a good thing. The rooftop units are on schedule for delivery as well. And then the Harding work hasn't started yet. That wasn't the plan, but we do expect that to start very shortly after the completion of the school year and have substantial completion by the August 29th date. I would like to thank both the administration here at Burley, the teachers, and the students for their cooperation through this project. It's a little bit of disruption for them. It's basically moving 5 classrooms to other areas of the building so that they could do that work in here, in those rooms. So I do appreciate the teachers and the students for their cooperation. So thank you all for your efforts, and hopefully it's not too disruptive. It would have been impossible to do both buildings over the summer, so that's why we broke it up this way. Harding really isn't the best place to move a first grade class to someplace else. So we have a little bit more flexibility at Burley. That's why we targeted that. Field upgrades, the contractors mobilized in November. Site demolition is 75% complete, probably closer to 90 as of now. Site export ongoing, probably when we typed this up, it was 60%, but it's probably close to 90%. You could, if you were paying attention, you could see those big, huge piles getting reduced by the day. Some weather delays occurred, but shouldn't have too much impact on our substantial completion date. We're working with our LSRP and the insurance company to hopefully recoup a lot of the money for the contaminated soil that we had to export out. It's a lot of dirt if you saw that. It was truckload after truckload after truckload. Regarding the additions project, the contract, as you know, was awarded. The contractor is mobilizing. They're starting their work on the site, and we do anticipate substantial completion by August of 2025. You can see they're out on the fields doing things and staking out things and mobilizing their equipment and setting up retention ponds and things like that. So does anyone have any questions regarding that?
Have they done any follow-up soil samples after the contaminated stuff has been moved out?
Yes.
Everything is clean and?
Yes, they
Okay.
will, yes. So here are some of the pictures of the HVAC upgrades. You can see them being dismantled, being moved in into the building. Some of the field work. I don't know how many trucks have gone in and out of this facility. Probably close to 200 or so have come in and taken the dirt away. And then, you could see the additions project starting to do their mobilization, remove some trees, start grading some of the land out there for where the new addition's going to be. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you, Mr. Canella.
Need this?
No. Okay, so I went through, for my superintendent's report tonight, I wanted to focus on a few items that have been sort of in the ethos for the past couple months. So I went back into my notes from our November meeting, our December meeting, and then our reorg meeting. And I wanted to use this time to just share updates and also facilitate maybe a conversation, particularly around some of the comments I heard at the reorg meeting. There was definitely, when I went back to watch the video, there's a dimension of, by someone wanting to have a more conversational setting. So I want to pose some ideas for what that might look like and sound like. And they could be discussed tonight, or they could be discussed at the committee levels too. I'll talk a little bit about that. So the updates I wanted to share were around the minutes I read and reviewed from the TAB committee, teachers, administrators, and board members. And then there were some comments around residency that I want to take up. We talked a little bit about board committees last Wednesday, And I thought it might make sense to focus on those for conversation for a few minutes. And then there are some pro forma items at the end, like monthly reports, HIB, and discipline. So I'm going to start with the TAB committee. So since the committees met, I've reviewed the notes that came out of that meeting. I've had conversations with the board members who were present and also the administrators. And Director Jablonski and I have talked about some ways to move forward with the concerns around subs. So the first thing I did was analyze the district attendance rates and held up those rates against like the new sick leave law, which is more expansive, right? And how has that affected us across years? I also examined the fill rate of subs over time. So for example, today 25 people were out district-wide. That includes teachers, custodians, technicians, and only about 8 or 9 of those positions were filled. Keeping in mind, though, all 25 didn't necessarily need subs. I've also investigated concerns that were raised that I heard in the minutes around special ed, absences, and the lack of sub availability. So what I'm planning to do, or we're planning to do, is compile a sort of investigative report where we share our findings around these things. I think it's really important to contextualize some of the information that was shared around special ed and hold that up against code and what's allowable in code. And then also, still looking at the top half of that slide there, also conferred with county colleagues. So you have the opportunity to meet once or twice a month with the 20-some-odd superintendents in Union County. Interestingly enough, this came up at the county level without me bringing it up, which is lack of subs across Union County and probably more widely. In fact, we got the opportunity to meet last Friday with the assistant commissioner, who talked a lot about the relationship between lack of subs and just general lack of teachers in the pipeline. Nationally, fewer and fewer kids are pursuing teaching. And so, like, what are the ramifications of that? So this was just like an initial foray into that information. And so next steps would be to coordinate an approach that's more strategic and more thoughtful than just throwing money at the problem. So there were districts at Roundtable that I learned that are having just as much of an issue as we are, and they're paying better, right? And there's some that are paying less than we are, and they're having issues too. So I don't think it's a matter of throwing money at the problem, although maybe there is some financial dimension to this that we need to consider. And we talked a little bit today, actually, about pulling stakeholders together, teachers, anybody who wants, who may want to be part of this conversation, to think of this as a multi-pronged approach. So we have made some upgrades in recent years. We have increased our sub rates. I'm particularly proud that we increased our rate for long-term subs. Right? At one time, they were getting $150 a day, and now they're getting, I think, if it's 6 months or more, $345 or something, which honors their time and efforts, right? Someone who's here for 6 months or more has a pretty big teaching and learning responsibility, so they need to be compensated as such. So what I hope we can do over time, over the next few months, is develop a real thoughtful plan that has action steps that we monitor and metrics associated with those steps, and then we'll report out to see how they're working. The other thing I thought more about was residency. So that came up in the reorganizational meeting the other day. I think it's important to think about the work in the district that's very, very forward-facing. So those pictures that Mr. Ganella just showed you is very forward-facing work, right? You see that from the geographic landscape you ride by, you see it. But there's other work in the district that happens behind the scenes, and that's by design. And so residency is one of those things. And we are constantly, as Mr. Ganella pointed to the other day, taking residency concerns very, very seriously. I left that meeting thinking there's a lot of discussion to be had about how residency issues come to our attention, right? Some people give us tips. Some people give us anonymous tips. In the most sort of like emotionally charged situations, sometimes it comes to be that kids know they're not supposed to be coming to our schools, and they tell a trusted adult because they carry that burden with them. And we take all of those matters seriously. But if there's more information that's wanted at the board level around residency, I thought more deeply about that and kind of plotted out these ways that we might potentially want to move forward. So I know we have standing committees of the board, curriculum, personnel, finance and facilities, and then there are those kind of like ad hoc, I guess they're not ad hoc, but they're as needed, right? And residency is one of them, and so residency, at least in my 5 years, has met here when there's a residency hearing. But that doesn't have to be the case. Maybe residency as a committee doesn't meet as robustly as curriculum, but maybe it meets a few times a year. And the work that could be a focus there is looking at policy and regulation work, maybe. To talk a little bit more about the affordances and limitations of some of the ideas that were raised the other day. So I've been in districts that has a massive re-registration in every odd grade level. Or when you enter ninth grade, there's a re-registration process. And we talked a little bit about efficiency and how effective that is, but that maybe is something that the committee or those who are on the residency want to take up. Another idea that I know I've seen work in other districts is just a sort of quarterly residency report that I would produce, and I would send it in weekly updates, either quarterly or semi-annually. And the purpose of that would be really to make the residency committee and therefore the full board aware of maybe the number of cases under investigation, how those cases came to us, where they are in the process of being verified, right? Is it like in the paper check process? Is it elevated to something more than that? And then also I think there's some space there to address misconceptions. In other words, if the per pupil expenditure is $15,000, $20,000, it doesn't mean that if we find one student who doesn't belong here, that we save $15,000 or $20,000. And sometimes that's what I've learned, that's what the public thinks. That doesn't mean that student should be attending here, of course, but there may be a space at the committee level to think through some of the misconceptions and really sort of talk through them too. The last thing I was thinking about, just more generally, was committee meetings. So we have the bylaws that were shared, and those look like they were for the standing committees, again, curriculum, personnel, finance and facilities, and maybe steering was on that list. But is there work to be done around, as you said the other day, Mrs. Zimmerman, like what does the NJSBA committee do? Or what does the Winfield committee do? Like what's the work that happens in the confine of that committee? I think we could also prioritize short-term and long-term committee goals, develop norms. I also heard a kind of desire to have more information shared about the committee work. I was mentioning to Dr. Panici and Mr. Ganella, sometimes that's a challenge because the committees meet right before a board meeting, and it takes time to like organize that thinking and those notes. But maybe as part of a norming process, we agree that by the next public meeting, those notes will be shared. Or maybe the minutes are shared in a Friday update, and there's an opportunity there to like chew on things and ask questions. I also thought a little bit more about a schedule for meetings, so I know now that budget season is upon us, there's like a very firm finance and facilities committee schedule. That meets a lot. We could adopt maybe a lesser schedule for the other committees too. In other words, maybe personnel has a standing meeting every third Thursday of the month, let's say. And as part of the norm, if there wasn't a need to meet, we would let you know a week ahead of time that there's no need to meet. Or maybe it meets every other month, and the month in between, there's sort of an update that I put together. But again, I think there's some space in place for some conversation there. Again, I'm just kind of initially thinking here, next steps could be to discuss some of these ideas about anything I share tonight here, or flesh them out at the committee meeting. I tried to get personnel and curriculum to meet in December. That was really challenging, I think, because of the nature of the month. So I know those two committees are due to meet again. So maybe that could be added to the docket, some of these ideas for conversation. And then also ensure, I think this is really important to mention, ensure sort of commitment and accountability and a majority-focused mindset. The first two are challenging. Like if we agree to norms, I would encourage the board to hold each other accountable for those norms. That's really challenging to do. I've led a lot of PD, for example. I set the norms at the top of the session, and then I don't follow them myself, right? it's hard to kind of hold people accountable to that, but I think for the norms in these committees to be more robust or more conversational, that really needs to happen. And then I thought more about majority-focused mindset. So we meet at curriculum, let's say, just using this as an example, and one person wants to talk or wants to research about why every eighth grader doesn't take algebra, and another person wants to talk about, just making this up, why there's no life in, earth and space science in high school, and another, that gets challenging, right? Because that then actually makes the committees less effective, because every board member's sort of pet project or interest is explored, and efforts are therefore scattered. So if we were to talk through some of these ideas at the committee level, it might behoove us to think about, again, the long-term and the short-term goals, but then also how those propel a majority-focused mindset. Like, here are the top 5 things we want to talk about in personnel. We have to chip away at them over time, but we have to hold each other accountable as we do that. Sounds like my house where I'm talking over my kids, and I say to my wife, I'll just wait till 9 o'clock to tell you when everyone's sleeping. But yeah, happy to talk through these ideas now about subs, residency, or committee meetings, but also happy to talk through them at the committee meetings themselves.
Well, Kyle, one thing I would
Yeah.
want to mention is when you talked about the idea of the committee meetings and the discussions
Yep.
and getting notes perhaps out to board members, that may be a good thing in some respects, but I think that having it discussed here in the open forum is even more beneficial, because as we used to do that, then the public gets to hear what we're talking about. It's not just a matter of coming up on the agenda and here's our resolutions and, the committee recommends it, so the board says okay, and we vote yes. And then then we wind up with the public asking the questions that get asked. Well, what's up with this curriculum, or why is that happening, or this, because it hasn't been put out there. I know we don't often get many here at meetings anymore, but for those who do watch it at home, they could be seeing and hearing the information, and not just those who are entitled to it or privileged to it, but certainly getting information that's happening in one committee out to other board members is important as well. I was a prime example of that when we were getting ready for the referendum. I was in that weird little loophole where I didn't even know what the referendum was about until it finally clicked that, oh, wait a minute, Nancy's on the one committee that hasn't discussed this, so let's have a meeting and tell her what the referendum's about. So that would have avoided that situation at least.
Wasn't that what the committee form of, the committee setup that we have here? Is that the committee gets all the detail, and then the chairman reports out on it, on the meeting.
But if it's
you're
not
gonna
getting
do it your way, then we
reported
don't
back.
need to have committees, we'll just produce everything during the meeting.
I'm just saying that in some instances, certain things need to be discussed, and all board
agree.
members need to have a better understanding. Not every single item. Do we need to know everything that's happening on this bill item? No, not
I
necessarily.
was just gonna do that tonight.
But, Anthony, you know what I mean.
I do,
Because
I
you've been
do,
here
I do.
long enough, and you know how we've done things before,
Right.
too. Where sometimes there are things that we discussed and we talked about, and other board members had a question about it, and then we could get an answer and knew, not just a matter of, well, the committee says this is good, so let's go with it.
And I'm sorry that everyone isn't here, all the board members, because, and I thank you for actually looking into this, because I've felt like Nancy many times, and any new person that comes on, they really don't know I know you get stuff in writing, but if you're discussing certain things in a committee, just share a little bit of something new or whatever. I agree, we just need to be more communicating. I feel like, that's my opinion.
That's,
I think when I was in the curriculum committee in the past, at the actually regular meeting, the chairpersons would say, we had a curriculum meeting this evening, and here's some of the things we talked about. Just
I
give a
know, but
brief-
it's you're not getting a whole lot. Like,
Well-
sometimes people ask me something and it's a different committee and I'm in the dark. I just think, as it was in the past, it wouldn't be a bad idea for the committee to go in a little bit.
Discussion in the last 10 minutes about right? If it's a curriculum committee and Mrs. Heimpel's here, she can lead a conversation about, to help me understand from the board member perspective, what you think the other 6 board members would like to know or need to know. But like, let's just work through that as an example. Suppose personnel met today before the meeting. I would suggest, as part of the norms, that I work with the committee chairperson to come up with the minutes, right? And that's shared either this Friday or next Friday. Again,
That's-
that would be part of the norms.
That's fine.
And then that gives you 2 or 3 weeks to review those notes, come to the meeting with questions that you may have so that there can be a conversation. I think that's where, like, maybe in my head, a next logical step is looking at those rules of engagement for committees, right? Time frame, the scope of the committee. I understand those bylaws outline some of that, but what I was hearing at the reorg meeting was that there was a need for, like, that to be unpacked a little bit.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I feel like, finance is finance. You get the pile and you can read it and see where we're investing stuff
Yeah.
or whatever's going on. But like new curriculum, it's a little bit harder. The public especially now wants to know, well, what's going on? I got a question about all the sciences. It was just textbooks, but and it wasn't handled appropriately, I didn't think. So I'm just saying, I feel like Nancy, sometimes I'd just like a little more information. And it doesn't have to be, because we're voting on things. And I don't want to be saying I abstain for everything. I'd like to understand it a little better. That's all.
But we also have a 303, sometimes 400-page packet every month with all the detail in it. So, I mean, I could get as detailed on you want on this finance and go over every bill, how much the water bill was, et cetera, but a lot of the details is in that report. I think the finance report's 200 and something pages this month.
I'm not talking about the
For
finance.
finance.
That's there. I
For
can actually
finance,
look
right.
at it.
Not for
And I
some
know
of
the
the others.
curriculum
agree with
comes
that.
and goes, and it's very vague, though. It says, and we're going to show tapes. It's really not giving me a picture. It doesn't have to be everything in curriculum, but when there's something new coming. So this was here from 2025 to 2018, and now there's a change in 2023. That's where I like a little bit more information about.
I think that's totally reasonable. We could totally do that. And I would add, parents are not, with all due respect to the board members, when parents have questions about curriculum, they're not shy to call us, right? I don't think they're waiting for the second Monday of every month to have their questions answered. But be that as it may, I definitely hear what you're saying, which is why I put this presentation together. And so I think we should work on norms and like scope of committees next in each of the committees, because I think curriculum looks different than personnel. Most of what we discuss at personnel, you're a member of
You can't
personnel,
talk about
is,
public.
almost everything is confidential, right?
Yes, yeah.
So that's gonna look different than talking about what you're saying, which I'm hearing you say is like resources as part of curricular learning.
Or major changes.
Got it. Makes sense.
So, one thing that we talked about last time, just to mention, is that, we meet at the committee level, so there's not a quorum too. So if we're discussing every single thing, it's like a committee as a whole, right? You need a quorum for every single thing. So with the committee levels, I think with curriculum, like last week in the reorg, there was 3 pages about textbooks and everything related to curriculum. So what Kyle was saying could be helpful with curriculum, just doing a general overview ahead of time. And I think to the most respect, we do that. We come and answer the questions, and sometimes there may not be an answer, but we get to it. But if we add those, for curriculum or whatever, it could be helpful ahead of time for everybody to read and then still bring their questions, maybe a couple of sentences just going over the basic things. We may not always catch everything, but it could be a little helpful ahead of time too, to do that. I think that's a good kind of plan.
Yeah, I think another piece that we need to consider over time is the development of board goals.
Yeah.
Right, especially if we're talking about a community of accountability. Teachers have goals. My leadership team members have goals, right? The leadership team members hold the teachers accountable for the goals. I hold my leadership team members accountable for their goals. You hold me accountable for my goals, right? Each year I'm evaluated in part on those goals. So I think there needs to be something that the board coalesces around, and it could be those goals.
Yeah, because the one thing I heard too, which everyone kept saying, is there's certain things we want to talk about. Okay, well, how do we identify specifically what we want to talk about, right? Other than we get we get this, we come and everyone asks their questions as they have it. So maybe I don't have a question about curriculum, but you do. So when we're putting together those norms, it's like, okay, there's certain things you want to talk about. Well, how do we know what those specific things are? Because there's so much to talk about.
And I think, Dr. Panici, that connects to the long and the short-term goals of each committee.
Yep.
Right, so that helps to drive or inform what's shared.
And the chairperson
part,
heads that, so then the conversations go to the chairperson, and then they bring it forward, and then we kind of work from there, so that it's, more fluid with the conversations. I think that would be.
It's worth a further conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, good.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, to that end, I want to commend and thank Kyle, because we only met last Wednesday and today's Monday, so it's not even a week. And I think you've put a lot of thought and effort into how we could approach this, so I want to thank you for that. And I think you've come up with a lot of good ideas, and around the norms, that's probably the way to go, to establish norms that apply to all of the committees, how they report out, the cadence, whatever,
Yeah.
around those is the way to go, so thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I also think I wanted to say this, in my preparation, I was making a note to say it, and then I forgot. I don't think that all these things are doable. I think in the conversation, we have to your point, have to pick, like, sort of à la carte, what are the highest leverage items? Maybe it is the norms, right? Start there. Like, what are the entry points for making the committees more robust, more conversational? Yeah. Again, for ongoing conversation, I just wanted to start the conversation tonight.
Thank you.
So, Kyle, just one thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned this stuff, maybe the lack of teachers around now in the country, and I don't know, I don't think 25 is that a norm for an absentee in one day? It's kind of, from what I recall.
On a Monday.
So, on the class, on the classes we have here, I'm sure Roosevelt Park and Springfield, and everybody has these classes with like 5 or 6 kids in it, or 10 kids in it. I mean, is there any way you co-opt them out? So let's say it's I don't know, any kind of class, like a high-level math class where we only have 5 kids in it, and Roosevelt Park has the same situation with 5 kids in it. I mean, is there any thought of co-oping,
Technically, you're not supposed to, I don't think, have less
I
than
don't know,
12 in it.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm,
New
I'm
Jersey,
not-
the
I'm not
key
an
section is you can't
administrator,
have less
so,
than 12.
Well, it's a district,
If it's like
yeah,
that.
I'll just
Yeah.
clarify that a little bit. It's district prerogative, class sizes, right? So there are lots of districts that don't run classes with fewer than 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not a requirement. I don't know, I'd have to look into that. I'm
it's
not
okay,
sure. Yeah.
I was just thinking out loud, I guess, okay, so if we're paying a teacher, Roosevelt Park's paying a teacher, and Springfield's paying a teacher, and there's 4 kids in each of those classes, or 5, why can't we just kind of, with today's technology, why can't we just co-op it out?
It's similar to what the virtual high school was.
Yeah, okay, the virtual high school, yeah. Just an idea, just throwing it out there
for
to
something
think
like
about.
that.
We're in the process of thinking about what this research looks like, and we'll put
Okay,
everything on the table.
that's good, I just threw it out there as
Yeah.
something to think about, thank you.
Got it.
On DTV.
Yeah, just to end, HIB discipline and enrollment. Burley has no cases of HIB for the month of December. There's one unfounded case at Harding. For the month of December, you have that, the description of the incident in your packet. And later in the meeting, you'll be voting on the report that I shared with you from November.
Everybody want to take a few minutes to look? And
It's
if you have
pretty
questions,
short,
please?
yeah.
Thank you.
Kyle, just one thought on the, excuse me, on the residency piece
Yeah,
and
please.
being able to report on it. And again, it's me asking you if it's possible to do it, so I don't want to if it's too much. But does it make sense to put together a residency report similar to how the HIB report is done? Where like you have, where it could just be a supplement to the weekly or monthly meetings that we
Yeah.
have, instead of doing something that's,
Like the cases reported, cases under
yeah,
investigation.
cases found and
Yeah, it
things
could be
like
a simple
that, right?
stick figure.
And then if it was something that needed a board level meeting, that would be,
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. The reason I suggested quarterly is because sometimes from start to finish, an investigation is lengthy.
right.
But yeah, we could absolutely do that.
You just see something that's like initial investigation, and then
Yep.
next month, it was proven
Okay.
not to be something like that, right?
I have a question on that. If, like, a teacher, they hear stuff, the kids talk, and I don't, where do I live? Are they bound by confidentiality, teachers, or can they, if they suspect that, could they or would they?
Teachers, when they suspect it or know it, they do let us know.
Okay, I didn't know if it was
Yeah.
allowed. Okay, thank you.
Does everybody need another minute or two for?
Good.
No? Good. Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay, no questions about the HAB?
That concludes my report.
Okay.
Except that I'd like to wish Mrs. Barillo well. Later in the meeting, I'll be voting to accept her retirement. She has served Kenilworth for the past 16 years. So congratulations.
Yeah. Okay, at this time, we'll have a report of committees, review of resolutions, and board discussion. Up first is Finance, Facilities, and Negotiations. Mr. Ladani.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just my narrative, we've purchased builder's risk policies for all three construction projects. Builder risk policies, basically, builder's risk is crucial for protecting the financials of all the parties. They involve the construction project, ensuring that the project can proceed smoothly, and it minimizes the impact of unforeseen events for the timeline and the budget. The annual audit, as always, is delayed, but we hope to expect it back by mid-January, Vince?
Yes.
So, if I'm correct. And as always, around this time of the year, the administration is in the process of submitting their budgets to the superintendent and business administrator for the review. And for all the committee members, I don't know who's on the committee this year, I don't know if I missed that email or not, but we're starting early February, so there'll be several meetings between February and March and April. If you drove by the schools, you would have seen that the two of the maintenance crew team were clearing the sidewalks and lots on Sunday morning, so it's good to get that out of the way and them cleared. For resolutions, 1 through 4, the standard monthly fare, they include Mr. Arlington's report, which you just heard, and the financials and billing reports. I reviewed the financials and billings, to my ability, they look proper. Number 4, there was no line item transfers that are over or greater than or equal to our $5,000 cap. Resolution 5 are conferences, workshops, and travel. I think the total cost of all of them was about $950, and that report on each of the workshops on page 9. 6 is a field trip for the teen conference in Edison. That's for HI, it's a club, right, Kyle?
It's a student wellness club.
Yeah, okay. 7 is, it's Board of Education Recognition Month, if you all didn't know that. Thanks, everybody doesn't know, like, some people think we meet once a month and there's no committees and there's no paperwork or anything like that, so it's more of a task than just meeting on, once a month on a Monday. But great job by everybody here. 8 is the Kenilworth Board of Education approves the statement of assurance for the use of paraprofessionals. We just confirmed that we're meeting all state and federal requirements, and I think that is on page 10 of your packet. 10 is materials, testing, and inspection. Basically, we hired a group that's Metro Inspections. They kind of oversee all the projects to ensure, like, we're using the right products, Vince, like we're not getting windows from Home Depot, stuff like that. We're getting the proper equipment, the site's proper, so they kind of oversee that to make sure that the contractors are meeting what we said in all the specs.
Correct.
That's about as much as I read into that, sorry. And 10 is the payment to the contractors. I reviewed each payment. The bills seem to be proper, and the breakdown of each of those payments are on pages 16 through 40. Negotiations, I think we're working on some dates to meet, to confirm, correct, Vince?
Well, I sent that out, so we should try to confirm those tonight.
Okay, we will do that, okay.
Okay.
Do you want to do that now, you want to do that after the committee, later?
Yeah, we can do it now, yeah. And
Okay.
The 18th, I know Paulette's not available the 18th. Are you available on the 18th? You're available on
Yes.
the 18th?
I'm available, yes, I'm available for those both dates I think you proposed, so.
Yeah, and the
That's-
other ones, the KEA would
What
be
day
the
of the week is
18th.
that? What day of the week is it? Is that a Monday?
It's on what day?
I have to look
No,
up
it's
on
a
my
Thursday.
calendar
That's a
here.
Thursday. That's a Thursday.
Yes.
The KA would be Thursday, the PSA would be a Monday prior to the board meeting.
Yep.
All right.
And that's all I have.
I will let them know.
So, any questions, anyone, for myself or Vince or Kyle? I hope that was detailed enough for everyone, because I was gonna go through the bill list. Thank you, guys, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ladati. Next,
I must say, you always do a fine job.
Thank you.
thanks, Mr. Legaty. Okay, up next, Mr. Haberthor, Personnel Management.
Thank you, and happy board recognition month to my fellow board members. 6 resolutions tonight. Resolution 11 is the resignation, the acceptance of the aforementioned resignation by Mr. Arlington. Resolution 12 is the approval of a middle school science teacher. Resolution 13 is the approval of a maternity leave of absence. Resolution 14 is the approval of a absence request. Resolution 15 is the approval of a student teacher. And Resolution 16 is the approval of substitute staff.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Haberthor? Okay, thank you, Mr. Haberthor. I will read curriculum instruction for Mrs. Tiers. Resolution 17 is regarding the HIB report. It would be to accept the HIB report that Mr. Arlington presented from November 1st, 2023 to November 30th, 2023. Does anyone have any questions about the HIB report or accepting it?
Fine, thank you.
Okay. At this time, we'll move to old business. Does anyone have any old business? For old business, we would just like to continue to remind parents, families, everyone that we get a Friday folder sent out, and the administrators send home opportunities, support, and all information on the websites. Please make sure that you're leveraging them and also other social media sites where we share information. At this time, does anyone have anything for new business?
I just have one thing I forgot to ask. Vince, I'm sorry, but at night, are all the sites like locked down?
Construction
Yeah, the
sites?
construction sites, do we have?
They're actually locked down during the day for the most part.
Okay, I just want to make sure like there's
Yeah.
nothing, okay. That's all I had, thank you.
Anything for new business? I was gonna mention, but everyone brought it up, so it's kind of new business. Thanking all the board members for, your time and dedication for Board Recognition Month. At this time, we will move to open the meeting up to the public for comment. Is there a motion to open the meeting to the public for comment? Second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Haberthor, seconded by Mr. Biner. All those in favor of opening the meeting to the public, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Mr. Ganella?
Yeah, public comment will now be accepted. The Board of Education sets a limit for the public to speak at the board meeting to 5 minutes per person, unless prior permission has been granted by the Board of Education for extended time pursuant to Board of Education Bylaw 0167. When you approach the podium, please provide your name and address prior to making your comments.
Thank you. Is there any public at this time that would like to comment? Okay, can I? Yes.
Hi, everyone. So I'm sure everybody knows, I'm Tony Giordano-Paserno, newly elected councilwoman, and I'm honored to be appointed. This is one of my charges as liaison, and I know nobody has ever come here for years and years, although everybody mentions the school board and our schools and money and taxes and all of that other stuff. So I am here to appropriately represent all of you folks. I know how hard it is to give so much of your time, attend all the meetings, all the different committees, put it all together. We have a lot of exciting things going on at Brearley and Harding this year, so I'm honored to be the person to be able to represent you all. If there's anything in particular you would like me to mention, I will absolutely do so, but I just took a few notes, just letting people know who's who and how it works and what's going on here, because that is the one department, the Board of Education, that nobody ever addresses at our council meetings. So I hope I cover things appropriately, and my email address, the borough email address, and my personal cell phone is on the website. If anybody ever needs to reach me for anything, feel free to do so. I will not be here on the February meeting, I'll be away, but I will try to make the monthly meetings just to become familiar with how you do things and offer my assistance if there's anything I could do on a council level. So, thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't need the address? Address?
She said Kenilworth.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did it.
Now.
241 Fayette Avenue. I should know that, right? You should. 241. And you all dress so nice here. I got to step up my game.
You're fine, you're fine. We don't always get that
Okay.
dressed.
Thank you. Is there any other public that would like to comment at this time? Okay. Oh, at this-
I do want to just point out, though, Mr. Giordano maybe perhaps is not aware that we have had many council members attending board meetings over the years that were the representative to, the liaison to the board. So
Well, they never reported.
I've been at,
So,
I've been at council
time-wise-
meetings where they have
Okay.
Ms. Giordano.
We're going to move on because
Yeah,
this is
that's
not
fine.
an appropriate time to discuss this, so we're going to move on. Can I
I
please?
just would like to say-
We're not going to comment about this isn't related to,
Right.
okay, right now, public comment. Can I please have a motion?
to close the public portion of the meeting.
Can I have a second, please?
Second,
Okay, motion made by Mr. David, seconded by Mrs. Drogan. All those in favor of closing the meeting to the public, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it, motion carried. The meeting is now closed to the public. Mr. Ganala, are we prepared to vote on resolutions?
Yes, we are. There are 17 resolutions on this evening's agenda. Do any of those need to be voted on separately? No? Okay, and this is for resolutions 1 through 17 on the agenda. Biner?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Drogan?
yes.
Ferrara?
Yes.
Haberthur?
Yes.
Ladani?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Panici?
Yes.
Motion's carry unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ganala. At this time, do we have a need to go and close the executive session?
We do not.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? We have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. David, seconded by Mrs. Drogan. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Ayes have it, motion's carried. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you so much. Happy January.